Mom cheated with my dad's best friend, and I was the result. 18 years later, my dad found out and spent his wrath on me. I'm Ethan, 18M. Until a few months ago, my life was perfect, for lack of a better word. Everything felt like something out of those family movies you often see. I have my dad, David, who is a brilliant engineer. My mom, Sarah, is a kind and capable woman. Then there's Emily, my older sister, 2 years my senior, and Michael, my older brother, who's 4 years older than me. Our house was always bustling. My dad was the epitome of a father. He taught me how to play soccer, took me fishing, and patiently tutored me in math whenever I struggled with those dry numbers. I always thought I was the luckiest son in the world. In addition to that, my siblings and I were incredibly close. When we were little, Emily would read to me, and Michael would always protect me from the mischievous neighborhood kids. As we got older, they became my excellent advisors, from schoolwork to other stuff. A few years ago, Michael graduated from college, and Emily is currently in her final year. Both my siblings attended my dream school, and most importantly, my dad took care of everything for them. Not just tuition, but rent, living expenses, and even their own cars. He never had questions about money when it came to us. My parents were always financially comfortable, and they always treated us 3 kids fairly. They also used to say that they had already set aside a special fund for my college education. All I needed to do was focus on my study. Then the day I received my acceptance letter to my dream university, I was overjoyed beyond words. I rushed into the house, immediately showing it to my parents. I was eager to talk about the courses I wanted to enroll in and about the student life I was about to experience. I was ready for a bright future, just like my siblings. But life isn't as easy as you think. That fateful moment, I'll never forget it. That night, I still remember every detail, every word. When I had just finished talking about college beamingly and ready to hear my parents congratulate me and discuss my future, but my dad's reaction wasn't something I expected. He didn't respond with a smile or any congratulations. His face was cold and his eyes sharper than I'd ever seen them. The whole room felt frozen. Slowly, Dad placed a white envelope on the table. It was thin, but at that moment it felt like it weighed a ton, pressing down on the air. My heart pounded. A terrible premonition washed over me. He looked straight into my eyes, his voice devoid of emotion, like he was reading a verdict. "Ethan, there's something you need to know." I swallowed, my throat tight. He pushed the envelope towards me. I tremblingly opened it. Inside was a piece of paper, and at a glance I could tell it was a DNA test result. The lines of text danced before my eyes. Then my dad David continued, each word like a knife. "You're not my son." My head spun. What? What was happening? "You are the result of your mother's mistake 18 years ago." I whipped my head around to look at Mom. She just sat there, her hands covering her face, tears streaming down. She was trembling, unable to meet my gaze. Her silence then, it was more terrifying than Dad's words. It confirmed everything. Dad David continued again, his voice as if wanting to nail me to the ground. "Your mother had 18 years to tell you, but she didn't." He paused for a moment, as if wanting me to absorb every word. "This isn't my concern because you aren't my son." My entire world collapsed in an instant. The name David, the exemplary father I'd always been so proud of, suddenly became a stranger. I was the result of a mistake? I wasn't his son? I looked at the DNA test result in my hand again, then at my sobbing mother and at Dad. He looked colder and more distant than ever. The world suddenly turned pitch black. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. I looked at Mom, Sarah. She just stammered, tears streaming down her face, mumbling as if she wanted to say something but couldn't form the words. She showed complete helplessness. Then Dad David continued, his every word like a knife piercing my heart. "I have taken care of everything for Michael and Emily. They are my biological children. They deserve that investment." He paused and took a deep breath, his eyes full of coldness and anguish as he looked at me. "As for you, you don't belong to me. I think everything I've done for you has been enough, even though it wasn't my duty. From today onward, I will not pay for any of your studies." Hearing that, I felt like 1,000 shards were embedded in my chest. For the past 18 years, the guidance, the hugs, was it all just a dream? 18 years of love and connection, was it all meaningless? My throat suddenly tightened, and tears just streamed out. I felt incredibly betrayed. I was an 18-year-old kid just stepping out of a protected shell. I'd never worked. I only had a mere $400 in my wallet from pocket money. All my plans, all the dreams for the future I had nurtured, were shattered in an instant. I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't even know if I was still welcome in this house. Shame, anger, and despair enveloped me all at once. I turned around and ran straight to my room. I slammed the door shut and locked it, as if to trap myself in the last remaining safe shell. I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to face that cruel truth. Everything just hung there, in limbo, without direction. Update 1. I stayed holed up in my room for days after that. It felt as if the entire world had turned its back on me. I tried to think of every solutions, thinking about what I would do to go to college and how I'd face the days ahead. I went online, searching for part-time jobs, but looking at the meager salaries, I started to feel discouraged. Working tirelessly for a whole month would barely cover rent, and food money would still be a struggle, let alone college tuition, textbooks, and all sorts of other expenses. It felt like a giant mountain of money that I had no idea how to climb. I also tried researching student loans, but reading through the terms, procedures, and interest rates, goodness, it was incredibly complicated. And the stories about the burden of post-college debt immediately haunted me. I felt completely overwhelmed. The more I thought, the more I felt trapped. Finally, I decided I had to confront the only person left who could give me answers: my mom. I took a deep breath, pushing aside the feelings of shame and fear. This wasn't the time to be weak anymore. I needed to know why everything had turned out this way. I left my room and went straight to where my mom was sitting in the kitchen. She was busy washing dishes, her back to me. I stood there feeling like an invisible wall separated us. "Mom," I called, my voice raspy. She startled, dropping a plate. She turned around, her eyes swollen from crying, looking at me with fear. I could clearly see the weakness and utter terror in her eyes. "Ethan, you," Mom stammered. I looked directly into her eyes. "Explain it to me, Mom, everything. I want to know the truth." Mom looked at me, her gaze unfocused, and then she began to speak, word by word. She cried, sobbing, but the way she told it was as if she was trying to justify herself. She said that about 18 years ago, Dad David was too busy with work. He would leave early and come home late, always glued to his computer screen or some technical drawings. She felt lonely and neglected. And then, she had an affair. It was only for a short time, she insisted. She called it the most terrible mistake of my life. But that wasn't all. She continued, saying that David had discovered everything over a year ago. He suspected I wasn't his son, so he secretly took a DNA test, and the results showed that I didn't carry his bloodline. Mom said that when he confronted her, she knelt and begged David to keep this secret. She was afraid of losing me, afraid of the family falling apart, afraid of social stigma. And David, after a long thought, somehow agreed, but on one condition. He said he would keep this secret with one sole condition. When I turned 18, my mom had to be the one to tell me the truth. I was numb, absolutely speechless. Everything had been planned out in advance. My father had waited for the exact day I turned into an adult, just to turn my life into a living hell. Why? To use me as a tool to get revenge on my mother, or out of some twisted sense of mercy? I truly didn't know whether to call my father a cruel man or one of immense endurance. I looked at my mother. She was still crying, but I no longer felt any pity for her. Instead, an overwhelming wave of anger and profound disappointment washed over me. "So why didn't you tell me then?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Why did you stay silent? You had a whole year to tell me, to let me know so I could prepare." Mom just shook her head, sobbing. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I wasn't brave enough. I was afraid of losing you, afraid to face your father. I didn't know what to do." She kept repeating those words, weak and helpless. My mother's cowardice had pushed me into this situation. She had no solutions, only tears. As I was drowning in that chaotic mess, Emily and Michael came into the kitchen looking for me. They must have overheard parts of the conversation. My siblings looked at me, their eyes filled with shock and disbelief. I could see they were just as stunned as I was. Their world had also just been turned upside down. But at least they still had each other and a real father. As for me, I suddenly felt utterly alone. Initially, Emily was the first to speak. She looked at me, her eyes bewildered. "Ethan, what's going on? What are you saying? Dad, what did Dad say?" She couldn't believe it. She'd always been close to Dad David, probably because she was the eldest daughter and most pampered. But then, as I recounted everything, Emily's face gradually changed. She didn't say much, just listened in silence, and then her eyes started to redden. And Michael? He was always the tough one, less prone to showing emotions. He just wanted things to be simple, without complications. Michael just stood leaning against the wall, arms crossed. But then, Michael's attitude slowly changed. He no longer looked indifferent. I saw him start to frown, staring at Dad David as he got up from the dining table. Perhaps he was also wondering how exactly everything needed to be resolved. After that fateful night, the whole family was silent. The air was thick with unspoken tension. But in that terrifying silence, I saw Emily and Michael begin to draw closer to me. At least, I wasn't completely alone. In those days, everything felt like a wreckage in my mind. I just lay there and remembered the fragmented pieces of my memories. Every tiny detail from the past year that I once considered normal now took on a completely different, much more horrifying meaning. Every hug, every ruffle of my hair, even the glances from Dad David hadn't been the same lately. Or those times Dad joked about my eyes. He'd even say, "All my kids have dark eyes like me except Ethan. His eyes are brown." Then he'd laugh heartily. Back then, I just thought he was teasing and even felt special. Or the times he used to attend my school plays and soccer matches. Recently, Dad David had always been absent, busy with work, meetings, and all sorts of things. Now I know those were tiny needles, veiled reminders that I was different, that I didn't belong. Dad David had harbored that resentment for over a year. He knew the truth, and he agreed to hide it, but in return, I can't feel even a shred of gratitude now, though I desperately want to. All I feel is surrounded by lies and a profound loss of trust. In this chaotic mess, I needed someone to share with, someone I could truly trust. And the first person I thought of was Uncle Ben. He's my mother's brother and the only uncle I truly felt close to. Uncle Ben has always been a good listener, always giving me the most sincere advice. I called Uncle Ben. My voice was still trembling. I told him everything, from the DNA test results to Dad David's harsh words and even the story my mother had just confessed. On the other end of the line, Uncle Ben was silent for a very long time, seemingly in shock. Then his voice came through filled with indignation. "Unbelievable! Ethan, don't worry, I will never leave you alone," Uncle Ben said, his voice firm. "I will help you, anything you need." At that moment, I felt like I'd found a life raft in the middle of the ocean. At least, I wasn't completely alone anymore. Update 2. Uncle Ben didn't just offer empty words, he immediately got to work helping me. He spoke with my mom one more time. This time, Mom seemed more afraid of Uncle Ben than of David. She stammered, then finally divulged a few more fragmented pieces of information about a name, Marcus. She said Marcus was someone she had known, not very closely, just a fleeting relationship. Of course, I knew she was trying to downplay it. Uncle Ben is very good at digging up information. Not just relying on Mom's words, he started sifting through her old photo albums from her younger days, checking old phone books and asking her close friends from college. We spent days piecing together tiny bits of information. And then, the first clue hit me, freezing me in my tracks. Uncle Ben called me one evening, his voice sounding strange, both shocked and as if he was holding his breath. He said, "Ethan, I found some old photos of your mom from college. David's in them too, and there's another man. It's Marcus." My heart pounded. Marcus? How could he be in photos with Dad David? Uncle Ben took a deep breath. He was David's best friend from their first year of college. They kept in touch for a while after that, even worked on a small project together. My head felt like it was going to explode. What? My biological father was an old friend of Dad David? Unbelievable. It turned out that Dad David didn't just know about Marcus, he was once his best friend too. I felt a huge lump in my throat. Did my biological father know the truth? If he truly did, his choice to remain silent and wait became an unbearable level of egregious I couldn't comprehend. Next, Uncle Ben helped me find Marcus's current address. He lived in a city about 2 hours' drive away. I looked at the address in my hand, feeling both scared and curious. This man was my biological father, but I had never known. I would have to face him. I needed to hear the truth directly from him, no matter what the outcome. Uncle Ben offered to go with me, saying I needed an adult present in case anything happened. I was incredibly grateful for his support. We drove to the city where Marcus lived. My heart pounded the entire way. Hundreds of questions swirled in my head. What kind of person would he be? Did he know about me? Would he accept me? When we arrived, Marcus was gardening in front of his house. He didn't look like I had imagined. I had pictured a mysterious, perhaps slightly intimidating man, but he looked quite ordinary, even gentle. Uncle Ben spoke first, introducing me. Marcus looked at me, his expression shifting from surprise to confusion. He invited us inside. When I revealed the truth, that I was his son, Marcus was completely stunned. He kept repeating, "What? No way. I didn't know Sarah was pregnant. That relationship was just a one-time thing." He tried to deflect responsibility, finding every reason to deny it. I could clearly see the fear and avoidance in his eyes. He was lying. I knew it. The way he hesitated, the way he looked away. Uncle Ben, his voice firm, placed the DNA test result that my father had given me on the table, along with a handwritten letter from my mother. "This is the proof," Uncle Ben said. "Ethan is your son. Sarah has confirmed everything." Marcus picked up the paper, read it several times, then let his hand drop. His face turned ashen. He said nothing more, and just sat there staring into space. Finally, after a terrifying silence, he nodded. I understand." He couldn't deny it anymore. I saw a fleeting hint of regret in his eyes, but not much. Marcus apologized for not knowing of my existence and for not being in my life. After that, he offered a small sum of money to support me. However, Marcus didn't mention anything about wanting to build a father-son relationship with me. It was as if he just wanted to get it over with. I politely declined his offer. I didn't need half-hearted help, and I didn't want any further ties with him. Money truly wasn't what disappointed me. It was the feeling of rejection washing over me once again. What had I even expected? A biological father who would embrace me and tell me I was his everything? How naive. That meeting, though it offered no miracles, at least gave me an answer. I knew who my biological father was. I also knew he wasn't the one who would save me. I could only save myself. I stepped out of Marcus's house. The sun was shining brightly, but my heart remained heavy. I no longer held any hope for him. But at that very moment, I realized I couldn't just keep drowning in this despair. I still had a whole battle ahead of me. Update 3. But life doesn't make things easy. Days later, I started to realize something was wrong. I applied for a few part-time jobs, but for some reason, they all rejected me without giving a specific reason. I also applied for student loans, yet all those applications were pending and then eventually ineligible. I started to feel uneasy. Something wasn't right. Uncle Ben advised me to be careful. And then, the terrible truth hit me. One day, an old friend of Dad's, David's, whom I happened to run into at the supermarket, discreetly pulled me aside. He looked around, his face full of worry, and whispered, "Ethan, your dad, David, he's been spreading some information around town." My heart stopped. What did Dad say? He hesitated, then said, He's been telling people you're ungrateful, disloyal, and that you have financial problems because you've been involved in illegal gambling. He told them to be careful when dealing with you." I froze. Dad David wasn't just refusing to support me, he also wanted to destroy my reputation and cut off all my avenues for survival. He wanted me to fail miserably. But his demeanor in the past few days hadn't been that extreme. Why was my father now deciding to do such things? Was it to prove my worthlessness or to exact ultimate revenge on my mother? The answer I got from my mother when I asked her was something I couldn't believe. What had truly turned Dad David into a cold-blooded individual was my search for my father, Marcus. My mother had always kept it completely hidden and never confessed. She just always tried to avoid the topic and said he was someone she didn't know. But David had always been suspicious. My trip to find Marcus had therefore been investigated by people he hired to follow me throughout those days. And when he found out I had gone to Marcus's house, Dad David confronted my mother. Finally, she had no choice but to confess the truth. And the truth that my Dad David had been cuckolded by his own best friend drove him insane. He had completely lost his mind. All that had festered within him was now irreconcilable hatred. My mother's selfishness had once again pushed life down a dead-end road. His rage didn't stop there. David also tried to sow discord among my siblings. I started to notice Emily and Michael avoiding Dad. At dinner, the atmosphere was thick with tension. He had begun to poison my siblings' minds with venomous words about me and Mom. He wanted Michael and Emily to hate Mom and me as much as he hated us. I clearly recognized the pain he must be enduring. What could I do? My beloved father was now my enemy. Seeing the struggle in Emily and Michael's eyes broke my heart even more. I had to talk to them privately, telling them about what Dad David had done and about Mom's past. After listening, Emily's face turned pale. Mom really did that? How could she be so out of line? She couldn't hold back anymore and burst into tears. Emily had always been that sensitive. "Don't worry," Emily said, gripping my hand firmly, her eyes resolute. "I will never let Dad harm you. He's just too angry. I'll talk to him to make him see reason." Michael, on the other hand, was less talkative, but I saw the indignation in his eyes. He just nodded, then clenched his fist. "Dad is too much," Michael muttered. "He's crossed the line." But despite my siblings' support, the situation only worsened. It seemed their attempts to reason with him only fueled my father's rage. According to Emily, Dad David felt deeply betrayed by everyone around him. What Dad David wanted now wasn't just to take away my future, he wanted to suffocate me. But I knew I couldn't lose. Even though I understood why he had gone so mad, I couldn't let him get what he wanted. I had to find a way out of this trap at all costs. Update 4. One afternoon, as I was in my room searching for job information, Emily and Michael walked in. They exchanged glances, and then Emily said, "Ethan, Uncle Ben is downstairs. He wants us to talk to Dad together." My heart pounded. Uncle Ben was finally here? I felt both anxious and relieved. Someone was finally brave enough to step up. I had contacted Uncle Ben a few days prior, telling him everything that had happened and asking for advice and help. At that time, he just said he understood. I never expected him to actually take action today. When I went down to the living room, Uncle Ben was already sitting there, his face stern. Dad David sat opposite him, looking visibly annoyed. He probably thought this was just a normal family talk, but no, not this time. Uncle Ben opened the conversation. He didn't beat around the bush, he went straight to the point. "David, I've heard everything, and I'm sure you already know I've been helping Ethan. I understand why you did it, but I still think you've gone too far." Dad David sneered. "Ben, this is my family's business, you have no right to interfere." At that very moment, something unexpected happened. My paternal grandparents, Dad David's parents, walked into the living room. I didn't know when they had arrived. Their faces were solemn, without the usual smiles I remembered. David frowned as he looked at them. Grandma, who was always gentle, now seemed unusually angry. She looked at David. "David, you've known about Ethan for a whole year now. You promised to keep it a secret on the condition that Sarah tell him, and now you're turning it into a sick game of revenge? Are you trying to destroy that innocent boy?" Her voice trembled with indignation. "What are you doing, David? You're destroying this family." Grandpa, a man of few words, spoke up too. "David, I understand why you're angry, but that's no excuse for such selfishness." He pointed directly at David. "You were wrong, and your actions are unacceptable." David was truly cornered. Even I hadn't expected my grandparents to take my side. I stood there looking at Dad David. Everyone was looking at him. The silence was unnerving. I gathered all my courage and took a deep breath. "Dad? No, Uncle David," I paused, trying to control my emotions. "I don't know if I should call you Dad anymore, even though I still desperately want to. For the past 18 years, I always thought you were the best father. I was once proud to be your son. Thank you very much. But now I only see a man full of resentment, ready to destroy my entire life just to get revenge on Mom. I don't know if I can forgive you, but I know one thing. I will not let you dictate my future." Dad David fell silent. His eyes wavered. He tried to say something, but then just bowed his head, unable to respond. My resolve seemed to have struck his pride. Grandpa continued, his voice sterner than ever. "David, you've let anger cloud your judgment. Ethan is not to blame for this. You raised him for 18 years. You can't deny that affection just because of Sarah's mistake. If you continue like this, you will lose everything. Not just Ethan, but Emily and Michael too." Immediately, Emily and Michael stepped forward, standing by my side. Emily looked straight at Dad David's, tears streaming down her face, but her voice was surprisingly firm. "Dad, I can't believe you're doing such things to Ethan. I always thought you were fair, but now I only see a selfish father. If you don't stop, Michael and I won't be able to face you anymore." Michael, for the first time, showed such fierce determination, clenching his fists. "I don't want to choose between you, Dad, and Ethan, but if you force me to, I'll choose Ethan. He's my brother, no matter what."
Dad David suddenly shot up, his voice trembling, sounding as if he was about to cry. "Do you all think I want this? I've spent my whole life building this family. Sarah betrayed me, and I had to raise a child that wasn't mine for 18 years. Do you understand how that feels? What more do you all want from me?" Uncle Ben remained calm, but his voice was sharp. "David, I understand your pain, but you're punishing the wrong person. Ethan isn't the enemy. Adult matters should be resolved like adults and with adults. Don't drag the boy into this. He's just an innocent child." In that moment of intense tension, Mom Sarah, who had been silent and sobbing until now, finally spoke up. I thought she would once again succumb to her usual weakness, but then, seeing Dad David cornered and hearing my grandparents, Emily and Michael, all take my side, something in Mom changed. I saw her eyes gradually become more resolute, no longer filled with fear. Mom took a deep breath, then looked directly at Dad David. Her voice trembled, but every word was clear. "David, I apologize for my mistake 18 years ago. It was my fault. I hid the truth, and I will have to live with that forever." She paused, glancing at me briefly, her eyes full of remorse. Then Mom turned back to look directly at David, and her voice suddenly became surprisingly strong. "David, I know I was wrong. I've lived with that regret for 18 years, but I beg you, don't punish Ethan. If you want to punish someone, punish me. Ethan is my son, and I will do everything to make it up to him." Mom looked at us, then at David one last time, her eyes filled with disappointment. I want a divorce." The entire room fell silent. I couldn't believe my ears. What had Mom just said? Divorce? After all these years of enduring, of being weak, she was now making such a bold decision? Dad David's eyes widened. He was completely caught off guard. His face shifted from anger to shock, then to emptiness. I looked at Mom, my gaze both pained and resolute. "Mom, I don't need you to make it up to me. I just needed you to be honest with me from the start. But now I understand, no one in this room can decide who I am or what my future will be. I will stand on my own."
Final update. It's been a month since that fateful day. I'm working part-time at a small coffee shop, trying to earn some money. Every evening, I'm buried in my computer, taking an online course to prepare for university enrollment. I'm living with Uncle Ben in a small apartment. It's not the big house I used to live in, but it's cozy, and most importantly, it's filled with peace and acceptance. I'm still trying to get scholarships to lighten the financial burden. I haven't fully forgiven Mom, and I probably won't ever call David Dad again. I've completely cut off contact with him. He's gotten his karma. I heard his marriage to Mom officially ended, and he's slowly being isolated within his social and professional circles. That's the price of cruelty. But I've realized one thing. Family isn't just about blood. Emily and Michael have always been by my side. We talk every day. My siblings and I are closer than ever now. Uncle Ben has become the true father figure I needed. He always listens and supports me in every decision. And another surprise, my paternal grandparents, David's parents. After that intervention, they met with me privately. Grandma held my hand tightly, her eyes full of sorrow. "Ethan, your grandpa and I are sorry we couldn't speak up sooner," Grandpa nodded. Then he said, "We will cover your tuition, all of it. Consider this our way of correcting David's mistake." I couldn't believe it. Tears just streamed down my face. I hugged my grandparents tightly. It turns out I still have a family, such a strong support system. This isn't just financial help, it's also an affirmation. I deserve to be loved, to be protected. And it's another blow of karma for David. He didn't want to pay for me, but his own parents are doing it, openly showing him how wrong he was. Uncle Ben also stepped up. He said he'd help me with my monthly living expenses and even referred me to a few part-time jobs that fit my class schedule, helping me gain experience and become more independent. So I started university, the dream school I'd always wanted. I no longer had to worry about money thanks to my grandparents and Uncle Ben. I began a new life, choosing my own path. The scars from the past are still there. I can't forget the feeling of betrayal and rejection, but I haven't let it destroy me. Instead, it's become a motivation for me to be stronger and more independent.
Now, I understand that DNA might tell you where you come from, but love and acceptance define who you are. I'm no longer a lost, aimless child. I found my family, a family not based on blood, but on sincerity, courage, and unconditional love. Thank you everyone for listening to my story. I hope that if any of you are going through something similar, remember, you are not alone. Seek the truth, be strong, and always believe in yourself. Life might throw you into the abyss, but you can always find a way to get back up. Thank you for listening to today's story from the Guilty Notes channel. If this story resonated with you, please like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional real-life stories and valuable lessons. See you in the next video.